Okay, so this is quite extremely informal. So the way we thought to run, can I? Yeah. Can you still see Melissa going around? Okay.
Sorry.
So Melissa asked us to sort of have this session mostly for basic comments and to understand how to work on Raijin. So I suppose how to understand how your account is done, how to submit a job, and we'll go through where to store your data. It's all, as a first approach, we just going to be a little bit hands-on, meaning we haven't really done proper slide or proper, we just have a list of comments we like to go through, we think you should know about to work efficiently on the system. And but it's mostly fairly basic unless you have more detailed questions, and we'll try to answer them. So we just go through fairly quickly, and I guess the idea was to have students mostly, so we kept it for people who might have not actually work at NCI, but I can't see many, or I'm not sure, so I'm starting to get work. You all seem to be experienced users, but we'll just go through in any case and see how it goes. If it gets too boring and obvious, just stop me.
We'll try to show off a few tips and tricks on the way as well, so it shouldn't be too boring for experienced users.
Yeah. All right, so I don't know if you can see my slide. It doesn't really matter because it's more for me to remember, but it would be good if you actually... can you see the slideshow?
No.
No? So I'm not much worried about that, more about when we might put in a terminal, but we'll see that. So the way I was going to start is understanding how your account works. And so just very simple thing, all this dot file you find in your home directory. So is anyone familiar with that? Your dot profile and dot rush RC and all of that? Or would you like for us to go through? Is that a yes for yes, go through? We here? Go ahead with that? Okay, good. All right, so the way NCI work, you are part of one or more groups, and normally the first group you're part with is your own institution, and that's as well the one that gives you the funny ID logo, like mine is TXT, but I suppose comes from my initial, not having a middle name, and 581 is for UTAS, where I'm working. And then you're gonna have, probably if you're part of the COE, you're gonna be part of one of the COE groups, and you could be part of different groups depending on the people you're collaborating and the projects you're part of. So you have a main, and every time you work, and every time you use CPUs or you use storage, there's an accounting system, and that normally is based on how much space or CPU time your group or particular project has been granted. So to set up your main group, this is something you can do in case you don't know, in the .rush RC file that is in your home. So if you go, you should be able to look at that and look what's inside it. Sorry, I'll just exit this because I can't see you in any case. And so I'm just going to try to share again my... Okay, so can you see now?
Yeah, that's got it.
Okay, I don't know if the terminal is a little bit small, but that's how it is. So like I have setm project W35 because that's my main project. So as soon I'm going to log in, this is going to run automatically and it's going to tell NCI that I'm working under this project. And then there is the shell that I'm using. In this case, I'm using bash. Normally, if you haven't changed or haven't done anything, the default shell is TCSH. And so if you want to change your default project or you want to change a shell, that's where you have to go and change this environment variable. For people who are really not familiar with Unix, setm is a way to, it's a command to set up an environment variable, so something that's going to attribute to project the value W35 in this case and so on. Sorry, this one here. Okay. Then you're going to have dot profile. That's another default initial profile. That even you might not know, like the computer is going to look at to set up your environment. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see actually this because it's very small. It's still fairly small, but.
Try Command Shift Boss.
Sorry?
Oh, bigger on the menu there.
Yep. Just going to look for that. And bigger again. Bigger. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, that's it. So, like if you see here, I got a few modules that I'm loading automatically, and we'll look into module later. Module is the way to load, for example, software and other things. And some I had them in, some I actually commented because this is gonna get load, and every time, again, I log in into Raijin, and they're gonna be valid for any interactive jobs you're gonna run. So watch out if you put in something there because if you want, for example, if I wanted to use a different version of Python and I'm loading one over here, then I will have to unload that all the time if I have it here. So just put something that you really use all the time. And then you can use this space again to set up some, set up some environment variables, things that you use often, or to set up alias for command. Like I got fairly annoying commands I had to run very often and I set up some alias here. Is that quite clear? Okay, so a similar one, but in my case, because I use bash, is the basher C. It's called .basher C. This is instead gonna set up all the things I want to have when I'm running a bash job. So this is when I'm submitting jobs and I'm running things in the background. This is what it's going to look at. So here I can set up and load different modules from what I have in my dot profile. But this is just going to work when I run a bash jobs for every bash shell and script. Any question up to now? If you don't use bash, you're going to have something similar. I don't know if Scott, you use a different shell or the TCSH.
And C shell is .login, which is the equivalent to .bashrc. So if you want to set up any variables each time that you log onto the computer, it's .login.
Yep.
Just to clarify that, I think C shell is the default. Is that right? So most people will actually be on C shell.
It puts up a little screen saying what shell do you want the first time you log in.
Oh, is that what it does? Okay. I've noticed most users here at C shell. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then we've been talking before about different groups you're part of. If you're not sure, sorry, I'm losing my... it's nice, I lost my mouse thing. Okay, there it is. If you're not sure which groups you're part of, what you can do is to use this command ID. As you see, I'm part of many groups, and they just have a number, and then as you can see, most of them have like a letter and two numbers, like P66, R87. Some other have actually, like the access one is as actually a word rather than anything else. Another thing, if you want to share something and you want to make it readable with someone else, and you want to make sure this person is in your group, so you can modify, say, the permission so that people in your group can see that, but you're not sure, you can actually use this other command, getEnt group, to do the contrary, to see all the people that, say, for example, is in W28. And that give you all the ID. Obviously, you have to know which is the ID of this person, but give you all the people who is in actually part of that group. If you need to be, if you think you need to be part of a different group, you can always ask access to a new group by some forms that are shared on the web, and I was actually trying to look at them. NCI just recently changed the user guide. Sorry, no, that's not here. Okay, so they just changed their website, and they actually, if you go on their home, you're going to find information for new users or for current users, and other documentation and live stats. And under new user and current user, I think it's kind of right at the bottom, you should be able to find the link to this kind of form. It's normally fairly simple. You just have to put in which group you want to be part of, your ID, and if you're gonna use resources. And then what NCI is going to do, they're going to receive this request, and then they're going to contact the person who is responsible for the group, and they're going to ask if it's okay for you to be affiliated. So it's normally better if you know, especially if you want to collaborate with a research group, that this person is informed before, you know, that you want to be part of a group. It might speed up things a little bit. But normally they're quite quick in answering. And sorry, I can't find them anymore. I found them before and I lost them again. Okay, is there any question about this? No? It's all clear? Okay, obviously there's a lot of other information in this part, and also information on how to use the system, and also information on actually various, you know, technical details of the system, how much space is available, and so on. So that's always a good resource for you. And other thing, okay. How to manage your allocation. So we used to have a quota commands on value and DCC. Now there's a new command called NCI_account. I'm going to try to run it here. Okay. You can specify the project. So for example, if I put W35, okay, it's telling me is printing out a usage report. So it does a little bit more than what Quota used to do. Here I can see this is for the fourth quarter of 2013, that is the actual quarter, but you can also request for a different quarter. And can you see this is visible? Yep. Okay, good. So you can see what the total grant or CPU time is for this project, how much has been used, how much is available, and then if there is a bonus, normally the bonus start up once the whole account allocation has been consumed and is pretty much automatically granted, but you know, things might run a little bit slower when you get into your bonus. And then it lists here for the difference queue, which is the charge weight. So if you use Express, as you can see, it's free time, then the other queue. The usage that has been known, how many CPU hours have been used, and how much hold time and SU use. And also he reported the reserve SU. This is jobs that are actually running, so it's not a definitive thing. It's based on how much is being requested by the person who submitted the jobs, and the pending SU is what been queued. And so these are the total SU committed. So this is a sum of obviously what has been used plus what has been reserved to run the jobs that are currently there. Then this gives you some details as well on the storage, like in this case on mass data and short for the project. So how much has been granted, how much has been used, how much is still available. And this is the inode granted, used, and available. So if I'm running this with -v for verbose, I'm going to get a bit more extra information. Maybe? Okay, there it is. So I'm getting pretty much the same information, but I'm also getting on top of that as well how this has been used by the different users. So I can see who actually has been using the resources. So this, if you want to keep track on how much you've actually been using. And okay, and also if the allocation comes from different grant, in this case comes from a mass flagship C. I don't know if Scott wants to add a little bit more. I think I got an idea what this is, but not literally.
Flagship C is just the
standard
source at NCI, so it's basically the Centre of Excellence. You also got stuff like merit allocation for if just your supervisor has set up his own grant at NCI.
Yep. So another thing that you can see here, in this case we got two sort of grant. One is actually just the grant and one is actually the bonus. What you see in this line, I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing, is that this indicates that first it's a sort of formula how we're gonna use these different flagships. So we're gonna use first all the flagship C grant, and then we're gonna start using the bonus. But this is quite normal and standard. But if you got some merit allocation stuff as well, it might be working a different way. And then we got again the storage and even these details based on which grant this is being granted. One thing I had to say that at the moment the amount of storage you get allocated on shirts depend on the amount of CPU you requested. So NCI is sort of applying kind of fixed formula. So the more CPU you request, the more space in /short you're gonna have. This isn't always a very good way to calculate it. So because you might have a project that has a lot of data output but doesn't need much CPU time. So if that's the case and you think you want To change this, you need more space in /short. Let us know, because they open to change that and adapt that to different workflow, different needs. And I think this is so one is for, the first one for mass data and the other one is for short. So I guess going to the different storage, short is where you should put your sort of raw model output or whatever you're running. It's not backup. And especially now that in January there's going to be this downtime, you have to watch out because it's more a risk of losing data. So if you got some data over there and you need to move it because it's important, contact one of us and we're going to help you moving it for January definitely. But keep into mind that as soon as you can, you should move your data either in the archive, that is mass data, or if you have some data that you need to access more frequently and needs to be accessed, for example, by different people, and you still need to work on, it might be a good candidate for /g/data, that is sort of the persistent disk, because mass data is on tape. So it might take some time to retrieve, and it should be just an archive. So normally you just have everything like zip and tar into there. So again, contact us if you need to arrange something similar. If you're interested in using /g/data, but keep in mind that that will be granted just if there is a good reason, and mostly this is especially if the data needs to be shared by lots of people. Any question about this?
What is this? Yeah. What is this I grant and I usage, I avail on the data and short?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Scott?
Sure. That's basically number of files you can have. So the way these file systems work is you can't have millions of files, or else the file system gets really slow. So they're just limiting the number of files that you're allowed to have within your directory. Most people won't hit that unless they're trying to build UM jobs.
Okay. Finally, if you run this same command with 2v-bb, you get even more information than that. And basically, the added information is mostly about money, how much things actually cost. So like if you see, for example, we got a price on gigabyte per month for short things. That doesn't mean that you're actually paying for that. But if you need to acquire extra storage of things, you might get charged, or your project might get charged somehow. And
so
and also
for commercial people or people like Euro, where they want to know where their money's gone to. It's not particularly relevant to us.
Yeah, but just so you know. And okay, other comments. I discovered one of these just now. Okay, L quota. This show, like for all my group, is showing all the usage and quota have and limit, and again number of files. The same for I usage, I quota, limits and number of files. But in all the different projects I belong to, plus some unknown things that I never seen before, like this one at the bottom. But so this gives you a very quick detail when you belong to different projects. And which is another one that I found out today. So I'm just gonna grab it from here. Is short file reports. Okay, and this is again to get more detail on short, so I can put a project like P66 I belong to with a -p. Oh my God, I shouldn't have choose this one. And this is detailed by user. Basically how much they're using in short. So maybe I choose exactly the wrong one because this got lots of users. Let's try this. There's still quite a few even in here. And if I'm actually using instead -pw35 and put -g, this is actually gonna sum up all the not just what it's under /short/w35, but anything that belongs, say, to w35, but is actually stored in a short under a different group. So, say, if I have some files under short w97, but this file actually has as ownership w35 as a group, then they're gonna be counted when I put -g, but they don't get counted when I put -p. So it's actually what the sort of calculation that NCI is actually doing when you when they look at if you pass your short quota or not, or if your group has passed your short quota. About ownership and things, I don't know if we got much time to go into detail in that. Would be good maybe to talk about ACL. I don't know if, Scott, you want to do that, you want to summarize that, or...
That probably could wait till a later date.
Yeah.
But there is information on this at the NCI website. So if you go to the website there, NCI Systems, they've got an introduction to NCI website there where it talks all about both this project stuff, as well as things like changing your default group and changing what files are owned by. So it's always helpful to have a look at.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to look in commands like chmod to change the various permission. One thing that's maybe worth to point out is that you can't change the owner of the file. That's basically impossible on this system. I mean, it's normally possible in Unix, but you can't do it here. It's not allowed. So if you want to change, if you have some files that you think you want to pass on to someone else, then you'll have to contact the help desk at NCI. Okay. NF limits is another useful command that tells you which are the limit applying on a queue. Maybe we should look into that together with the queue sub stuff. And so I'll leave that away. Then we talked about modules before when we were looking at .login. So a way to see what software is available is you do module avail and you get a list of all the modules that you can load with all the different versions, and then you can load whatever software you need by doing module load. I don't know what this is. Say 2012.1. I don't even know what it is. And then if I want to see where the module is actually installed, or where the libraries are, whatever, I can use show. Or I think display does pretty much the same thing. And so it gives me some information. It tells me where it actually, the path where the actual libraries are, in this case in /apps, and so on. If I want to unload the modules because I want to have a different version of the same thing, I can do unload first. that's quite simple. You can also, if you need a software or, for example, I don't know, you're using Python and you need a particular library, it's not available here. You can do either two things. One is request it for extra software, and the other one is to, if you think it can be useful to lots of people, or you can install it in your own user space, in your own home. And to do that, you can find information. Where are you? Okay, there's this page where on the NCI website that lists all the software available in all their supercomputers. And for example, if I want to have more information on Python, I can go over here and then click on Autocues, and here gives me information on how, for example, well, how to load Python and whatever, but also how to actually install extra libraries. So you don't have to remember all of this, but just to know that you can do that and basically set it up just for in your own home space. And where you're gonna find the installed things is gonna be in .local/bin. So, for example, I have my proxy client there, and that's where you're gonna find your installed software. Okay, because we're running out of time, I just leave to Scott to talk about submitting jobs and things, and then we're nearly done.
Okay, see if I can get my that mine shown on other people's screens. That's not working. So you can't see my screen? You can see my screen?
I can see.
You can see it? Okay.
Good.
Great. So I'm just going to talk a bit about the queuing system at NCI. NCI use a program called PBS to schedule what gets run on the supercomputer queue. So that's basically people submit to it shell scripts, and then the queuing system goes off and runs those, gives them whatever CPUs you're requiring, and sort of arranges things so that everyone gets a fair share of the supercomputer. Submit. So a PBS script has a few things in addition to what a regular script does. Sorry, it's just, I'm running on my phone because there's no wireless access up here, so it's a bit slow. So in addition to whatever shell you're going to be using, you also have PBS commands, and there's a variety of these. So -q is what queue you want. So if you recall back when Paola was going over the NCI account command, there's 3 queues. There's the express queue. Jobs in the express queue are more likely to be run quickly. However, they will cost you more computer hours. So for every 1 hour you use in the express queue, you'll be charged free. There's also the normal queue, which is just for normal jobs, and then there's the copy queue. So copy queue is for jobs where you're dealing with lots of data. So if you're copying data over to MDSS, or if you're copying it out of NCI to your local institution, and you're not using a lot of computer time. So copy queue is only charged for CPU hours you use. There's also commands for how many resources you want. So these are -L number of CPUs, NCPUs. Similarly, we've got number of memories, amount of memory rather. So you can just enter in number of gigabytes, number of megabytes, and similarly for the amount of time you're going to spend on the queue.
Sorry, I got a question.
Yes?
What are the limits for the memory and hold time to run jobs?
I beg your pardon?
The limits? Are there any limits?
Yes, you'll be one moment. So we enter all these. So the number of CPUs is important because it tells the queuing system how many CPUs you want. Memory and wall time are also important because they are for where the queuing system will put your job. So you want to be trying to get fairly close to what you're actually using. So if your job is using 800 megabytes of memory, then you don't want to be requesting 2 terabytes of memory because then you'll never get put in the queue, or it'll take a lot slower. So you're wanting to be close to what you're using, but if you get over, the queue system will kick you out. So there's a balancing aspect there. To look at how much resources you have, what your limits are, there's a command called nflimits. So here you give what project you are, so say W35, how many CPUs you want. So say I want to use 256 CPUs, and what queue you want to use. I want to run them in the express queue. And this will go ahead and tell me what my limits are, the maximum I can use. So in the express queue, I get charged 2 extra hours for every one I use. I have a maximum memory of 40 terabytes, and I have a maximum wall time of 0, which means I can't actually run my 40 terabyte 256 job on the express queue. Then if we go over to the normal queue, we see here that I can run my 40 terabyte 256 CPU job for 24 hours, or 24 minutes rather.
24 minutes.
So this will be hours, minutes, seconds. So if you want to change these, you can. You just have to email the help desk and say why you want to change them, and that can be done. What else? So to submit your job, I'll just see if I actually save that. I'll just make it do something. You go QSub for queue submit, and then whatever script you want to put in the queue. So that will go ahead and give you a number to identify what job you are in the queue. If you run nqstat, this will show all the jobs in your project. So if we go up the top, somewhere at the top, here we are, that's my job there. No, that's not my job. It's probably done already. Here we are. So it's already done. You can see that there's a lot of information there. You can narrow it down. So if you go nqstat, or if you go qstat, then -u your username. That will print only jobs you've submitted. So you can see I've got a lot of jobs running at the moment. And this will also tell you stuff like how much memory you've requested and how much wall time you've requested and similarly how much you're using. So after I've run my job, I've got an output and error message. In the submit.o, so this is any outputs from your script. Doesn't like 80 calls apparently. And it also gives you a summary of what job ID you used, what project you used, how much it cost, how many CPUs you requested, memory, and similarly for how much you used. So it used no time and no memory because it was just printing hello to the screen. And in the .e file, you'll see any error messages that popped out from your job. You can't get any of the output or error messages until the job is finished in these files, but you can actually check up on the jobs that are running. If I've got any running, I can show you that. QStat. QStat. Search for a running job. So to see any output you're getting from the runs, run qcat, then the number, and that'll print out all of the output while it's waiting to be run by run. You can see this is a unified model job that's just buzzing along, and if you were getting any error messages or crashes or anything, you can check that here. You can also stop a job by running qdel. I'm not going to do that because I want this job to finish, but if you did want to stop a job, just qdel it. That just takes it out of the queue. You can submit it again if you need to make any modifications. I'll just go back to the NCI guide and see if there's anything else I should let you know about. Again, most of this information is here in the Introduction to NCI website. So you've got stuff like the PBS options, what resources you should be requiring, long-running jobs. Pretty much all our models will be able to checkpoint after some time. So then, instead of running one huge job, where if it breaks in the middle you've lost all the hours, you should be running a number of shorter jobs that just continue on from each other. And then you've got stuff like this output messages, error files, and also you've got a few more than I listed commands to monitor what's happening in the queue. Paola, what did you want to go over next?
Scott?
Yes?
But I think I noticed something. If you go back to your submit script that the one that you just submitted, I think those hash PBS lines have to be continuous from the second line onwards. If there's any empty line or not PBS line, I think the rest gets discarded. I'm not sure.
No,
I haven't tried.
Yeah, you're close. You can't have any commands in between them. So it will look for the first non-comment line and stop there. So if I try to run this in the spirit of experimentation, and then I qstat it. So that's gone into the normal queue. It hasn't looked at my QExpress number of CPUs, anything. So you have to make sure that between your PBS comments, oops, sorry, I want to see it, I don't want to submit it. So that between your PBS lines, well, there's no commands between the start and your PBS lines. Comments are fine, empty lines are fine. It's just you can't have commands.
And one other thing that I might want to add is that you can also use these commands as well during submit. So you could also, if you submit this job but say Q sub minus Q normal, then it would override this express and set it to the normal Q.
Absolutely. So if you want to change what user it's getting run as, or what project you want it to run it as, Q sub dash P, W40, that will get sent to W40's queue.
It's happening.
You can only do that to a project you're a member of, so you can't play any tricks with it.
Sorry, I have a question about the memory for copy queue. Might be a bit silly, but when you're copying something off, does your memory allocation have to be big enough to hold what you're copying across, or is that a different type of memory?
No, it will stream the stuff out. It doesn't load everything into memory and then copy it across. So for most things, that shouldn't be a problem.
One thing, copy queue to my knowledge is the only queue that actually has access to the network outside. So if you have any wget commands in your script or anything, it needs to be in the copy queue or it won't execute.
Absolutely.
It will fail.
All of the other nodes can't actually see outside of NCI, so you're restricted to copy queue if you're going to be moving stuff. We will be going on to the data mover nodes shortly, hopefully, and they're another way you can copy data in or out of NCI. Carl? You're muted.
I forgot to mute the microphone. So the last thing was about, in fact, about how to transfer data in and out of the system. And because we don't have much time, I'm just going to list the... sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can get on top of you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to list the different comments that NCI recommend. Well, okay. If you got big transfer jobs, or just in general, trying to run in copy queue, as we were saying, and then the command to use are secure copy, SCP, and an example. I was just trying. Sorry, just had to go. Can you see my terminal? Because I lost it for some reason. Can you see it? No? Okay. That's
got it.
Okay. So the way SCP works, for example, here I'm trying to transfer something from DCC. So I'm putting my username on DCC at dcc.nci whatever and colon, and then the directory where I got this file and the name of the file, and I'm putting a dot because I'm just copying over here, but you can put whatever local directory, and it's going to request my password, and then it's going to tell me it doesn't exist, but that's fine because it doesn't exist. Other commands you can use, and they all have a fairly similar syntax, is rsync. That's particularly useful if you want to transfer, entire directory and the directory structure underneath it. And the other one is sftp. That is good if you just need to transfer, just one file, a few files very quickly. I'm not going into a lot of detail. One recommendation is to use this address r-dm.nci.org.au rather than Raijin when you're transferring data. And finally, the last thing is about... Sorry?
Why? Why do you use this address instead of...
So The data mover nodes are basically so you don't fill up the login node with movement requests.
Yeah.
So if it's taking up a lot of time, it will slow down the login nodes.
Okay.
So it's just a separate area just for copies.
Yeah. And the other one.
Sorry, before we move on, we used to use DC .NCI. Is there a reason we use R now instead? Is that a new server?
I think it's just for Raijin, so it's got Raijin short instead of DCC's short loaded.
So is DC, not DCC, but DC, is DC still, I mean, is there still a place for DC in data transfers?
Well, I think DC was doing the same thing for DCC. But I think I suppose once DCC, gets dismissed by the end of the month, will be the same for DC. But as far as I understand, so.
Okay, I thought DC was a separate machine, but okay, all right, that's fine, thanks.
Yep. Okay, then to transfer your data to mass data, you can use MDSS, this command. So
the conference is about to end.
Okay, so just very quickly, you can specify the project under which you want to put it, and then the MDSS command that can be get to retrieve files and put to copy files onto the system. And obviously you got here you can copy entire directory, like here with -r. It means that does this recursively. And there's these other options when you're copying file, you can wait until the files are copied to the offline storage before returning. Other commands that work with MDSS, you can remove files, you can remove directory, you can create new directory, you can list them, change permission, move files around, and deuse disk usage. So the easiest thing is to go and do man MDSS or MDSS-help, and you'll find all the different options. And the last thing I got this out of man MDSS, in fact. And the last thing is that it's easier to get to list a lot of files, all the files you want to transfer in one single MDSS get, rather than running a lot of MDSS get, because in that way they can run in parallel. Basically, and your transfer will be more efficient. And that's about it.
Another thing to note for MDSS is it's best used for large files. If you've got a lot of small files that you want to put on MDSS, just tar them up.
Tar them up.
MDSS put that directory. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have about
Paola, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I used to work directly on the mass data mount that was on DCC rather than using the MDSS command. Is there going to be a similar mount somewhere?
I don't think it's actually working. I was wondering because I used to do the same. I just used to copy, but it doesn't seem to work now. But then I noticed that they put in this notice that they're going to mount it actually on Raijin on Thursday and Friday. I think there was an email going around today, so it might be possible after that.
Do you think it'll be mounted on Raijin?
I think that's what the email said. I've read it very quickly because we're moving office, thanks. But I was wondering the same, and because I couldn't see any more. You can go in /mass data on Raijin, but you can't see all the projects and all the stuff, in fact, at the moment. So I think they might have mounted just a few projects rather than everything, but they might do that on Thursday and Friday.
Do you know if there's any performance issues with working on the mass data folder directly rather than these commands? Doesn't sound like there is if you've been doing the same thing.
I think, you're pretty much doing the same thing. I'm not sure. I can check that. Do you know that, Scott? Or?
I'd assume they'd be pretty similar.
Yeah.
You're going to it's going to be a lot slower doing operation, or slower than a normal mount doing operations on /mass data if it is mounted, just because it's a tape library. There's actually an interesting video on the NCI website showing you the tape robot moving back and forth you want to see what it actually is. It's just a little robot. It pulls out a tape from
it's a little
a big filing cabinet, moves over and chucks it in a disk drive. It's quite interesting to see.
Does anyone got other question, or is there?
Maybe another silly question. Stuff on home in DCC, do I need to physically copy that off to Raijin, or is it all the same file system?
They're
On
separate
DCC?
file systems.
So I do need to take a copy of that before the end of the
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're talking about your home on DCC?
My home on DCC, yeah.
Yeah. It might have been. I found actually that NCI did that for me. You know, when I got into my new home at Raijin, I had the stuff transferred. But yeah, you might want to check. If you need to do that, the best way to do it is with rsync.
Right.
And I can send you an email